Hey guys, Buttman 945 here. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm making part 7 of my One Piece review, and this is over Fishman Island. Well, I guess technically Return to Sabaody because I don't think I included that in the last one. I could be wrong about that, so if I end up repeating myself, my bad. But quick little thing about that arc. I thought it was really entertaining. A tier for me. Um, I like the idea of the fake straw hats. They were like hilariously awful. Um, and I also and I think it was just cool seeing all the straw hats again. I love the post time skip looks. Um, And then, okay, so now on to Fishman. So honestly, I heard that this arc was not well liked by the One Piece community, but I really enjoyed Fishman Island. Like, if I were like ranking it in a tier list, it would probably be near the top of B for me. I really enjoyed this arc, and I really don't understand the hate behind it. I will say, I'll get this out of the way right now. The one major problem that I had in this arc was the beginning with Sanji. I know some people might find the pervert gag funny, and for me it works like like maybe a couple of times, scattered obviously, but I think it's absolutely stupid that um Sanji almost dies like 3 times from a nosebleed because he's that like perverted. I think that's completely ridiculous to me. Um, and to be honest, that's really my only major problem with the arc. Um, there were a lot of things I really liked. I didn't think Horty Jones was that bad of a villain. I thought that he was perfectly serviceable for what the arc was trying to go for. And in fact, I think his best strength as a villain was serving as a medium through which the themes that Fishman Island was really trying to go for be very effectively communicated. And speaking of which, I think that's probably the aspect that Fishman Island does the strongest is the themes that it tends to tackle because it tackles themes of prejudice and forgiveness and just in general the entire concept of difference between races, which has kind of been explored a tiny bit like in like exposition and such, or like you saw it in like Sabaody Archipelago, like the difference in class between fishmen and humans. And and I really liked the beginning of it where we kind of saw the I guess the uh I guess the I really liked seeing the different areas of Fishman Island. And I thought there was a lot of really unique culture there, and I think these kinds of arcs work really well. Kind of like Skypiea, which like when I thought Skypiea for me used to be a B, but like when I think about the things that this arc did well, I realized that Skypiea just did them better, like had a better villain. And so ironically enough, this arc has kind of caused me to retroactively think more positively about Skypiea. Um, but anyway, that's not really related. Um, and I think that Fishman Island does really well portraying these themes through Horny Jones as a villain and through the actions of various characters. And probably my favorite part about the arc as a whole is absolutely the Fisher Tiger and Queen Otohime backstory. I thought that that was really some great stuff. I love the design of Queen Otohime. Um, I really, really liked getting a lot more characterization for Arlong, and in particular, kind of what makes him different from Horty, I guess, in this instance. Um, and I also love the character of Fisher Tiger and how he ends up being betrayed essentially by humans, even though he had done so much for them. And I loved his death scene that was very badass, where he like refused to accept a human blood transfusion, and how this is almost representative of how he still like hung clinged on to lingering hate even as he died, despite all that he tried to do to not have that. Which is like a complete opposite parallel to Queen Otohime's death, which, very predictably she was shot by 40. I mean, that wasn't really that big of a plot twist because it was pretty predictable, but it's not really a bad thing either because it still works pretty well. Um, and I love how she tells her sons to not hate the person that killed them. And what I love even more about the characters of Fukaboshi, Ryoboshi, and Manboshi is the fact that all of them kept to their mother's promise, and the fact that they never really ended up having hate for Horty as a person. They just wanted to know why he did what he did. um, and I think the identity of Horty being the fact that he doesn't hate humans for any one particular reason, I thought was actually a really, really interesting perspective to go off of that, made him very different from why Arlong hated humans. Um, and speaking of other Fishman characters, one of the best characters in this arc is Jinbei. Because I feel like Jinbei got a lot of characterization, especially during the Fisher Tiger backstory. He kind of goes from being in the army to being a member of the Sun Pirates to being one of the seven warlords. Um, and I think that dichotomy is extremely interesting. Um, because it gives Jinbei a lot of perspective as a character, I think. And I also love and I love how this perspective and experience he's able to use in certain situations to decide a course of action. Like, for example, when he's debating versus Luffy, like Luffy wants to just charge in, um, but how Jinbei knows the fact that will only make it worse. I love that fight because I think it creates an extremely thought-provoking situation where you really can see the side to both arguments. And I love the resolution of it, how they end up coming to a compromising solution. It's a very satisfying scene overall. Um, Another thing I thought this arc did really well is just I think that this arc was great for showing even more of the Straw Hats post time skip powers. Because you have various things um Chopper's new different points that he can control, and the fact he's finally able to control his monster point, which I think is so much character growth for Chopper. The Iron Frankie is freaking awesome, and I'm in love with it. It's my favorite post time skip character power boost. I love that giant robot. It's so cool. Um, it's cool to see Zoro like beating ass, same with Robin, and I think it's really cool how Sanji can kick the air now. I think that's really funny. I like Usopp's new attacks with all sorts of plants and how they kind of use that experience to beat a Daruma because they were already used to fighting Mrs. Also, wait, no, Mrs. Christmas in Alabasta, like because of the digging underground. I love that callback. Um, I liked seeing Brooks' new like powers where he was able to like move his soul out of his body and stuff like that. I thought that was really cool. Um and then seeing on top of that, seeing just how completely broken Luffy's hockey is, like seeing him wipe out 50,000 of Horty's 100,000 man army with just one bit of Hunger's hockey, and then the way he integrates observation and armament hockey into his fighting style, I love that. Um, and I also really, and I think the concept of like the perspective of the fight taking place like in between water and air bubbles, I thought added this like very rich dynamic to the fight to make it from becoming stale because like ultimately, I feel like you go into this arc knowing that Horby Jones is a villain that's going to have his ass beat really easily by Luffy. And so this dynamic of including the water, I think, adds a lot of like rich, like complexity to the fight to where it's not so simple for Luffy and he has to think of another clever solution to beat Horty's ass. And then when he does, it's of course very satisfying. Um, And then, oh boy. Well, firstly, I really like the character of Shirahoshi. I think that she is an extremely endearing character, and I think that she has a lot of heart. And I think that Vanderdecken's obsession with her is hilarious, and I also think his Mark powers are pretty unique, honestly. Um, And now we get to the lore, and boy, is there a lot of it here, because of course Robin finds none other than a poneglyph here, and there is a lot of lore because apparently Shirahoshi has the power to call the sea dragons, which is actually the power of the three ancient weapons, which is something that was foreshadowed all the way back in Skypiea. Um, and so I know this is like not much less review time, more like more speculation time, but I know that there was something about Pluton with the poneglyph in Alabasta, and then obviously there's Poseidon. Shirahoshi has the power of Poseidon. And then Uranus, we have not gotten any information about, at least to my knowledge. And I'm very curious to continue finding more information about who Joy Boy is. And I think it's very fascinating that Gold Roger had the same, like he was able, just like Luffy, to hear Shirahoshi's conversations with the Sea Kings. And that makes me also very curious as to how the Noah as a giant ship plays further into the lore. Um, and I think it's also crazy that Akainu and Aokiji fought for 10 days, and Akainu is now the new fleet admiral, which spoke very scary things potentially for the new world. As expected, Blackbeard is now one of the four emperors. That was a fairly obvious conclusion to come to. And near the end of it, we finally get the first proper introduction to Big Mom, who is one of the four emperors that wasn't really talked about very much to that point. Um, just kind of like mentioned in passerby. And I gotta say, I think Big Mom is kind of disgusting, but also really interesting, uh, idea for character. And I can't wait to see how they end up clashing in the new world since, Luffy claimed Fishman Island as his own territory. Um, so I'm very curious to see where that kind of stuff goes. Um, and like the subtle detail of the fact that Big Mom lost ships to Captain Kidd. I like that very subtle detail because it's clearly showing that the other pirate crews are really trying to make moves in the new world, and I'm really excited to see how they interact because they were entertaining enough in Sabaody. So oh, oh, yeah. Um, and beyond that, um, what else that got mentioned in those sense? Not really, I don't think. Uh, Uh, one more thing I gotta say is King Neptune is an absolute diva chat. Um, but no, I really like his character. I think that he is very entertaining and very funny. And so yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this arc, and I really don't understand the hate for it because I think that there's a lot of really good stuff here, and the only thing that's like holding it back is just the fact that it's not as good as other arcs, in my opinion. But this is probably like top of B tier in like a tier list for me. I quite enjoyed this arc, honestly. Yeah, that about sums up my thoughts on Fishman Island. I am now making my way into Punk Hazard, which I've also heard a lot of negative things about as an arc. But I guess we'll have to see what I think of that because it's going to be a decent couple of episodes. So that's going to be it for this One Piece review. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.